Well, we have some new developments in the South Carolina Senate race. Lindsey Graham's sister, Darline, said she's running, and Trump's already promised her his full endorsement. And we have now 2 other Republicans running against her anyway. So I don't know if I have to rehash this, but we all know Lindsey Graham passed away on July 11th. He was 71. His sister, Darline Graham, was sworn in 2 days later to finish his term. She was appointed by the governor. Now, that's not the same thing as being elected. She had Senator Chuck Grassley administer her oath on the Senate floor. They had a brief ceremony. No campaign was behind her yet. Just a sister stepping to a job nobody planned for her to even have. And Trump nominated her as what I looked at as a caretaker, somebody who could keep the family legacy alive, finish out Lindsey Graham's term, but also support the MAGA America First agenda. And Trump got out in front of this pretty quickly. Before she'd even said whether she wanted the seat permanently, he was already telling people that if she wanted it, he would give her his complete and total endorsement if she did decide to run. And this morning on Fox, well, she gave him exactly that.
Will it be difficult? Yes, absolutely.
So you're inclined to get in, or have you even made a final decision?
I've made a decision.
You're in.
I'm in.
Now, she's 62. She has no political background. She spent her career in disability services, most recently running South Carolina's Commission for the Blind. She's now the first woman to ever serve and represent South Carolina in the U.S. Senate. And Lindsey Graham held the seat for over 20 years. He chaired the Judiciary Committee. So whatever you thought of him, he wasn't a backbencher. And that's the seat she's trying to hold on to. It's not some quiet appointment that nobody was watching. And here's what many people are overlooking. It would have been easy for her to finish out the year quietly and then just go home. Nobody would have blamed her. Instead, she just signed up for a 6-year term, a primary in 3 weeks, and a general election after that, on purpose, in the middle of grieving for her brother. Now, I have some respect for that because that's not obligation. It was a decision that she made. Now, if you think about the position she's actually in, 2 weeks ago, she was a private citizen running programs in South Carolina. Her brother passes away. The governor swears her in. And before she's even unpacked boxes in her new Senate office, she's being asked whether she wants to do the job permanently for 6 years in front of the entire country. And she said, yeah. And Trump didn't wait to see if she'd run before backing her. He actually met with her at the White House last week, and then he posted it himself, his complete and total endorsement. And that's Trump handing his name to someone with 0 elected office experience on the strength of one meeting and a family name that he trusts. I don't think it's sentiment. I don't think Trump hands out complete and total endorsements just to be nice. He looked at what she represents. He looked at the field. He looked at, the possibility of running Russell Fry and what that would do to the House. He looked at what she represents and decided she's worth putting his name on. And the part that actually decides all of this is a special primary on August 11th. Summer turnout, nobody's paying attention outside of South Carolina. In a race like that, name recognition and organization beat everything else. Russell Fry and Norman have both they're already holding House seats. They already have donor lists. They already have field staff, name ID. Darline Graham has never been elected at all. And she has exactly, 1 week in office. And there's a wrinkle in all of this, too. South Carolina primaries traditionally go to a runoff if nobody clears 50% of the vote. Now, with 3 weeks, or with a couple weeks, these candidates will likely split that vote. Getting a majority by August is a real long shot for any of them. And that means the most likely outcome isn't even the first vote. It's whoever survives it. And then they win the runoff a few weeks later. So Trump's endorsement matters, but it matters twice in this scenario, not once. Once to her into a runoff, and then again to actually close it out. And that's exactly the seat that Russell Fry and Ralph Norman, they've decided to run. Now, a quick word on who we're talking about here. Russell Fry represents South Carolina's 7th district in the House, and Ralph Norman represents the 5th Both are sitting Republican congressmen. Neither one is some, fringe candidate. Fry's situation is a little more personal than that, because days before, Trump backed Darline Graham, he was on Newsmax praising Russell Fry by name, telling people to watch him. And in many circles, the president had said that Russell Fry was his choice. He's already been talking to Russell Fry's people. He was the guy. But then Trump pivoted to Darline. And despite that, Russell Fry applied and filed his paperwork today. So, look, Fry isn't some guy who missed the memo. He's the guy who got unendorsed and got it anyway. I don't know if that's strategy or if that's just he's running just in case. I don't know. There could be a strategy here. If the president did encourage Russell to run anyway and offered him a position in the cabinet as a backup, that's highly likely, because Russell Fry isn't, under bad terms with the president because he's running. Now, Ralph Norman's a different case. He has no personal history with the pick. He's just a sitting congressman betting that he can win outright. But both of them right now are betting that Trump's word won't move the primary anyway. Now, to be fair to them, they got an actual argument. This isn't, just ambition. Their case is pretty simple. Darline has been elected and been in office for a week. She's never run a campaign, never cast a vote, never sat through a committee. Fry and Norman have done that for a few years now. So in a normal year, that's not even a close argument. Experience would win. And Fry specifically can make a case that nobody else in this race can, because he had the endorsement first. But this isn't a normal year, and it's not a normal seat. And she's not just a placeholder with no story. Again, she's finishing her brother's line with the president behind her. And that's something. So whether South Carolina Republicans vote on resume or loyalty and grief, that's exactly what August 11th is going to answer. And there's a real cost either way. If Fry and Norman beat Trump's own pick, that's a signal that his endorsement has limits. And that would come right before the midterms would need that endorsement the most. But if they lose, they've just spent political capital, challenging a grieving sister and the sitting president both at the same time. And many would say for nothing. So, look, this primary is going to tell us something about whether Trump's endorsement still means what it used to. And I'm not going to miss a single vote, okay, between now and August 11th. So, I hope you subscribe and stay with me, okay? But you should care, even if you don't live in South Carolina. Every time an endorsement like this gets tested and wins, it tells other Republicans in every other race exactly how much risk it is to cross the president. And every time it gets tested and loses, well, it flips. Okay? This one primary is a data point for every primary after it. This isn't happening in a vacuum. This is the same week Trump is personally pressuring House Republicans to pass the SAVE Act. It's the same stretch where Bernie Sanders is trying to unseat a sitting Democrat in North Carolina, and Democratic socialists are targeting one of their own in Michigan. Every party in every lane is having the same type fights right now. And whose word actually moves voters? That's what we need to figure out. Is it going to be the leaders or the local machines? I'm betting on Trump, okay? But South Carolina is just the version of that fight with Trump's name all over it, directly on the line. So the honest history on this is that, the Trump endorsement in contested primaries, don't have a perfect record, not for Trump or anybody else who's ever held the office. Sometimes the name on the letterhead is enough. Sometimes local relationships and years of constituency, that service can outlast the Trump endorsement. And neither Fry or Norman are dumb enough to run against the sitting president's endorsement without believing they have a shot. And that alone tells you something about how they're reading the ground in South Carolina right now. They must know whether they have a chance. So if you live in a state with a competitive primary this cycle, you should watch out how this turns out. It's just a preview. Whichever way South Carolina goes, campaigns in your state, They'll be taking notes. So, look, we have a woman with 1 week of elected experience who just chose to run a real campaign for the United States Senate. Maybe she's coasting on sympathy. Maybe she's coasting on the endorsement. That's for you to decide. But Trump already had his name staked in this before she even said a word. And 2 sitting congressmen just decided that, well, they bet they can beat that word. And whoever is right is going to win and find out on August 11th. Either way, whoever wins, this walks into the general election already having survived the toughest test that a candidate can face this cycle, President Trump's endorsement. So, look, drop a comment. What do you think? Does Trump's endorsement carry this primary? Do you think Lindsey or Graham's sister Darline wins? Or do you think Russell Fry or Ralph Norman will split it wide open? So let me know what you think. I'm interested, especially if you're from South Carolina. Okay? Let me know. See you soon.